All right, let's turn to Labor's misinformation bill because there are serious concerns that the Albanese government's legislation will threaten free speech. Now, Australia's former Chief Medical Officer, Dr Nick Coatsworth, is the latest high-profile figure to slam the government's plan, and he says it should be rejected in its entirety. He warns that it would censor serious health discussion like what happened during the pandemic when legitimate debate around COVID was branded misinformation. Let's bring in now Quillette founding editor Claire Lehmann. Claire, great to see you. Now, you've written multiple brilliant articles on this topic. You're saying that this legislation would seek to control public discourse. What do you think are the main issues?
The main issues, Sharri, are that the term misinformation is often used to silence unpopular opinions. And anyone who's writing a bill trying to outlaw misinformation or require social media companies to outlaw misinformation is massively underestimating how difficult it is to arrive at the truth. We know that truth exists, it is out there, and we would all like there to be fewer lies in the world, but it's incredibly difficult to arrive at the truth, and we all have differing opinions, and that's why we have the courts, that's why we have enterprises such as science, which are quite adversarial, by the way, so we can arrive at the truth. Now, imagining that some paper pushers, some bureaucrats sitting in an office can somehow miraculously be the world experts on every single subject known to man, and they can determine what is the truth and what is the misinformation on absolutely everything is bonkers. But this is essentially what the bill is proposing. It's proposing that social media companies basically enforce a code of conduct and censor misinformation if it threatens to cause serious harm to public health, the Australian economy, electoral processes, referendums and so on. I mean, just take the Voice referendum, for example.
Yeah, good example.
The proponents of the Voice who lost the referendum will tell you that they lost because of misinformation. I mean, they might say that was one cause of many, but they still will argue that misinformation was an important factor. Now, that's an opinion, and many people had differing opinions. So,
and Claire, by the way, we saw the Prime Minister stand up in Parliament and say that the No campaigners were spreading misinformation. So if this is what the Prime Minister is saying, misinformation, and he's then introducing a misinformation bill, well, there is legitimate reason to be concerned that that misinformation could be used for political purposes. Do you think this is a risk?
Absolutely, it's a huge risk. I mean, Chris Bowen, the Energy Minister, already describes the coalition's policies and many of the statements put forward by experts and experts like nuclear engineers as disinformation, not even misinformation, but actually disinformation. I mean, the whole thing is ironic because I was looking on Twitter, now X, at a tweet where Chris Bowen was describing Peter Dutton's nuclear policy as disinformation. But Chris Bowen's post itself was flagged with a notice by Twitter saying that it was misleading and deceptive itself. So, we've got the people who are often using the term misinformation are purveyors of misinformation themselves. And I'm really quite surprised this bill has gained traction at all. I mean, it takes just 20 minutes of critical thinking, maybe 2 minutes of critical thinking to pull it apart and realise how impossible it will be to actually enforce it. And then if we do try and enforce it, we'll be living in a totalitarian state.
Indeed, and the objections to this legislation come from both sides, right and left, and it's perplexing that the government is persisting with it, given there is no one who is actually supporting it. But it's another sign. It's just a piece of woke legislation, basically. Claire Lehmann, your commentary as well as your writing is simply brilliant. I appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Sharri.